Hey everyone, just another driver test for you today. 21.5.1. I wasn't actually going to update to this driver because it is a very specific driver, but then I realized it's going to impact future driver updates, so I might as well cover it now. And the reason for that is because I use the Metro Exodus benchmark. Now, I don't know if Enhanced Edition might have some benefits that carry over to vanilla, but when it comes to driver optimization, it's hard to be sure. Like, it does say support for Metro Exodus Enhanced, but in Metro Exodus Enhanced runs on 21.4.1. So yeah, there's some kind of connection there where I'm not 100% sure if I will get a performance boost or anything like that. I haven't actually tested with 21.5.1 yet. I'm going to do that live, but I just wanted to make that clear that that's part of the reason I updated, because when I ran the benchmark tool in vanilla with Enhanced installed, you can't actually run the Enhanced tool, the Enhanced benchmark tool at the same time. You can't have them side by side. And to me, that's saying that they're kind of like sharing some kind of driver or API level memory or optimization within the driver, because it wouldn't let me run both. So anyway, you can see the changelog here. I'll have that linked in the comments and description below. And as far as updating went, all I had to do was I just did a full install over the top of my existing drivers. It's the same thing I always do. It worked without any issues. I just had to go into performance and reload my undervolt, which I will share with you right now for my 6700 XT. You can see the settings here. The only thing that's really changed from my previous driver testing, because I did retest 21.4.1 with the 6700 XT already, and I'll just share this here, is with Heaven and 2600 megahertz 1100 MV undervolt, I was getting 145.2 with recording on, and with the new testing, I'm going to be running 2100 megahertz on VRAM, so I retested that with recording off and still came at the same rough result of 148 FPS with recording off. So I'm still betting that around 145 is what we're going to get with the 21.5.1 drivers, even with the VRAM tuning turned up a little bit. Because of the recording, it's going to have a small FPS hit, but I'm expecting about 145. And then for Metro Exodus, I did previously have some testing done, but I was using my RX 5700 to have a comparison to the RX 5700 result. I was using 3440 by 1440 high with all details off, and that was getting 58 average FPS with the RX 5700, and then with the 6700 XT it gets 78.74, which is much better. But then I decided to just do another retest and play with the settings a little bit more, because I realized that tessellation is actually a huge performance killer, and I was almost going to switch to that with the 6700 XT, but I decided not to, because it only enhances certain aspects of the game, such as when you open a door that's got like a metal wheel, I don't know what kind of, a metal lock on it that you have to turn to open a door, like the bunker doors. And with tessellation on, they do look much smoother and fuller, but you honestly lose like around 10 to 20 FPS, even when you're not opening doors. Like, you're just traveling through the environment. Usually you're looking for monsters, you're not staring at the rocks on the ground. So that's part of the reason why I would ideally run without it. And then because I did the test, I ended up doing more testing. So this is vanilla Metro Exodus, and you can see the settings here, and then you can see the second run I tried tessellation full, and I went from 81 to 70 FPS, and then I tried tessellation full with Hairworks on, and that went to 67 FPS. But this is 3440 by 1440, okay? And then we'll also have some RT on vanilla and Enhanced Edition comparisons, because Enhanced is ray tracing only. You cannot disable ray tracing. They've removed rasterization and made a lot of scenes, completely change the atmosphere, change the artistic direction. I could go on like a long rant, but I'll save that for a comparison video that I might do. But basically, yeah, I'll put all these numbers down just for you guys to take a look at. If you've been curious about the RT on and off and enhanced performance, you can take a look at all these, and then we're going to take a look at the 21.5.1 testing that I'm about to do. Okay, so I'm just sharing that now because that's basically what this driver is for. It's an optional update that mainly helps with Resident Evil Village and Metro Exodus. So, wait, I completely skipped it. So you can just see there, but yeah, you can see that there's also some fixed issues and known issues. I believe I encountered this issue. That is, they say it for Radeon VAI. In my village testing, when I was changing settings a lot, I did encounter application hangs in the first mission, which is basically village, the entry mission. And yeah, I got the application hangs and basically the game freezing on the 6700 XT. I did send a bug report through, but sometimes the known issues take a while to actually pop up in the driver notes until they do get around to fixing it. So hopefully that issue is, like, maybe it's already fixed in 21.5.1, and they also say it's for RX 6800 XT. I think that's what they tested it on, but I'm sure there's a performance gain across the 6000 range. So anyway, we'll get to the actual testing, and the main purpose of my driver videos is so that anyone that's been wondering about AMD driver stability on a properly optimized and, there's no crap running on my system, you can actually see the tray. Oh, I should close that. You can see the tray, hardware info, Afterburner, the driver software, and Epic Games, because it's hooked into everything now. It hooks into the Metro Exodus benchmark, and every time you run the benchmark, it asks you, do you want to enable the friends list notification synchronization? I don't know. The Epic Games social network wants to just be part of everything that runs from the Epic launcher. And normally you could run the Metro benchmark without Epic running. But because of this hook-in social thing that I finally clicked accept to, because it kept asking me, now I can't run the benchmark without having Epic Games open, running in the tray. So just if anyone's curious about that, I'm not running it on purpose. I'm running it because I need it open to run benchmarks. It doesn't seem to affect Heaven anyway. I could close it for now, but I'd have to reopen it if I want to run the benchmark tool, because it just hangs the benchmark. So anyway, just for stability testing, and as well, you can see me recording. Like, you can see the timer in the bottom right. This is all one-take video. I'm recording with ReLive. And the settings you can see in the video description. I've added a few more details here into the OSD just for your viewing pleasure, because we can't, for some reason, Afterburner doesn't have a memory junction sensor, even though it does with the RX 5700. Hopefully they add that in with an update, or I'm just missing the update. I don't know, it's hidden somewhere in a beta. But yeah, we're just going to test, and I'm just doing my typical Heaven benchmark minimum boost, which is skipping through all the scenes so that we don't get any scene loading minimum FPS drop. So the minimum FPS we get is actually just baked into the benchmark. We do get FPS drops. So anyway, let's run it. And this is Ultra Extreme 1080p times 8 AA. That's important. If you run it Ultra Extreme without the AA, you're going to get a different result. There we go. You don't really need the benchmark tool, 1% and average, but I just got it there anyway. Doesn't really matter, because it'll give us a score at the end. And yeah, also the memory junction, that's with the memory at 2100 megahertz for the DRAM, as you can see there. So I've tried to color code it so you can see CPU is orange, GPU is red, and the RAM is just to show the RAM, because some people, don't bother looking down into the video description, just to show that the RAM speed is 3600 and it's 2x8 dual channel. And if you're wondering, I backed my overclock down, not due to instability. It runs perfectly fine at 4.4, but the power consumption is just unnecessary. It hovers around 1.25 volts. Doesn't sound like much, but I actually run my computer 24/7 for other activities when I'm not using it, and for my kids, things like that, watching movies, everything. And a lot of the time, it's not actually intensive gaming. So having my 4.4 all-core overclock at 1.25 is just unnecessary power wastage for a very minor gain, very minor performance boost in gaming. So 4.2 lets me run a very, very heavy undervolt. It's like 1.081 under load, under all-core load. And it just saves power. So I just decided I'm going to run that. And it's also more realistic to what people will get if they enable PBO. So even though I'm running an all-core overclock or undervolt at 4.2 gigahertz all-core, so it's always at 4.2, if someone turns on PBO, ideally, with good temperatures, they will boost to 4.2 all-core. So my results are going to be closer to a vanilla you know, expected performance instead of people having to guess, well, do I need to overclock to 4.4 to get this performance? They're going to have a lot better of a chance to hit similar performance levels with the same specs as me if they decide they're going to upgrade to a RX 6700 XT. So that's the other reason. It's just to also help users get an idea of relative performance rather than having to, you know, guesstimate 4.4, 4.2 all the time. Although PVO will still have lower performance, which sucks. But anyway. Very interesting, this benchmark. You can actually see the FPS at the top and the bottom right of the window. It's sitting at 131, and we're hoping for a score of around 145, and it climbs up towards the last few scenes because the FPS jumps up because of the view distance of where the scenes are. So you can see it's spiking up to 200 to 300 FPS depending on the scene changes, and the FPS will just keep climbing and end up at around 145. But for the majority of the first, like, 19 scenes, it's closer to 139, 135, 140. So it's just these last scenes where it's not even this part, like not near the buildings. It's just whenever it goes further away, we get a average FPS much higher, like here, just going down side of the balloon, 250, and then now it's going to climb. Interesting though, just to be aware of it. Oh, and the other thing about the undervolt and the running the stock speed 4.2 is look at those temperatures. It's like 5 to 10 C cooler in general as well, just running this speed versus 4.4. So the temperatures, the voltage, it just trumps having 200 megahertz. So 146, even recording, we ended up, it's within margin of error, but it's a very good result either way. And we're going to add that in. So literally I can, how's I doing this here? Because I do try to keep this kind of copy pasted type of thing. So it is 10.05 and then 21.5.1. Everything else is the same. Why did I put 2100 here? It's meant to be 2600. Sorry, that's a typo. 2600 by. Yeah, I didn't put it there. 626. Okay, I'm just making sure I've got everything right. 26. Okay, it's all good. So there we go. Just copy some Heaven template here. Should I start putting the hotspot mem in? I don't think it really matters. The hotspot and memory we're reaching. If I go down here, my GPU, the hotspot was 66, and for the memory, which is 66, we got the last time we tested, and for the core hotspot, 64, because I'm running the AC. No, I was running the AC last time. I'm always running the AC. Never mind. So yeah, just slightly, it's about the same. Not a big deal. I don't think I'll record temperatures. That's very subjective. So most people that want the quick answer will hopefully just go down into the comments anyway and get all the data they need. So I hope I don't get too many people. I get people complaining that my videos I talk too much and stuff, but it's literally just for the sake of sharing this information. I don't make money off doing this stuff. It's monetized, but literally I don't really make anything of it. It's like $1 a month or something like that. The main reason I do it is just because I'm testing it anyway for my own sake, for my own curiosity, and I want to share it. So, you know. Why is my phone going off constantly? Sorry, my phone's like really annoying. Mute forever. Bloody hell. Okay. Evan, and now we'll get onto Metro Exodus. And I'm going to change the method to one of these here for my vanilla run. I don't think I'm going to switch to the Enhanced Edition as my benchmark tool because RT is just still gimmicky for me. And I will argue anyone about that because I'm going to make a new video comparing vanilla to RT. There's just so much I could go over. But anyway, so that looks good. And now we're going to do the, and you're going to see we need this tool, we need this open, but it's weird. The social thing doesn't pop up, but it wanted to hook into the benchmark tool. So Metro Exodus Enhanced, and the one we're going to go off is the rasterized vanilla version with these settings here, except recording is going to be on. And the comparison is not, I mean, it's still going to be comparison because I tested this with 21.4.1. So the only difference is going to be recording is going to be on, so we will see a slight FPS hit. But if I was to play this game with my current GPU, like my current system, these are the settings I would play at. It's these settings with the tessellation off, Hairworks off, Physx doesn't hurt performance, and RTX obviously off because it's just a performance hog. Because I'd rather just have that fluidity at 100 on a 100 hertz monitor. So that's the settings we're going to be testing at, and I'll be able to just copy paste the new results. I just decided to add these in here because it's easier than people wondering what specific settings I had on. I used to just say high with everything off, but I added Physx on because I realized it doesn't hurt performance and I was individually testing. So I'll save that. And file, big game, metrics. You can see the new settings that I run, except for that part. It was saved from the previous. I was testing 1440p for some reason. So Hairworks off, Physx on, tessellation off, AF16, and high. So actually, if I had just done that, it would have done the same thing. So there we go. And we'll run it. It is laggy. This is one annoying thing about the Metro Exodus benchmark. It is laggy to boot up. Even without recording, it just takes a while to launch up. I don't know. I'm really thinking I should just switch benchmark tools. But because I've been using it for so many, driver versions, it's like I'm kind of attached to it now. But, if something better pops up, I'm probably going to switch if I can get it to load up quicker. Because Heaven is great. Heaven loads up fast, but this is just tedious to use. So here we go. And sorry if you can hear screaming in the background, it is my 2-year-old. So please forgive me for that. Can't do anything about it. So there we go. You can see if there was any performance difference for the vanilla version. Now we have that baseline to go compare to. But this is with recording on, so a minor hit is normally like this is all margin of error. It looks like no different. So when they optimized this driver, obviously it was for ray tracing, I'm guessing, not for vanilla. But at least we can see that it's performing as expected. That's the purpose. Is it dropping FPS like crazy or something like that, having some severe performance issue or stability issue? No, it's running perfectly fine. So that's what we wanted to see, really. And we're comparing it to this result here, this RTX off vanilla top result. That's the same settings. Okay, so we're within 1 FPS. 2 FPS on the minimum, but yeah, recording's on. So just be aware of that. And then we're going to do Enhanced Edition, and it's kind of annoying because obviously they've worked hand in hand with NVIDIA. This is an NVIDIA marketing release, the Metro Exodus Enhanced. They did not optimize heavily for AMD. They did not include, Fidelity FX. It is mainly to push ray tracing, and that's what the original RT implementation was trying to do. They were trying to tell people that accurate lighting is worth losing 20 FPS because rasterized lighting isn't as accurate. That's what it comes down to. A scene can look more realistic, but at the same time, you're paying for that realism in performance. If you have a 3090, good for you, but if you can't afford one like the majority of people, or you can't get your hands on one, then you have to make that trade-off of performance versus visual. Like, for example, just the overall game quality has to be turned down to get playable performance with Enhanced Edition. But seeing as the driver update, supposedly, like, the actual driver notes don't say that they've done it. They don't mention the percentage of performance boost, but there was a post floating around somewhere that said enhanced performance in Metro Exodus for the latest driver. I don't know where the post was. I saw it on FB. It was like an AMD post somewhere. Don't quote me on that, but it was floating around the internet. So I'm hoping the Enhanced Edition compared to 21.4.1 will have a performance boost, and we're going to target this setting here because, just to be honest, maybe medium. We'll target medium. Like the 1%, you're not going to notice really. 48 to 52, even if it was 45 or 40, you won't notice an FPS drop like that. But you will notice the playability if the average is under 60. You'll just notice a slight smoothness difference. So higher is always better. I would toss up between medium quality and low quality, and everything else is basically turned down as low as it can go because this is a ray tracing only title. So you can't like turn RT below normal. You can't turn ray trace reflections off. You can have the hybrid version, which is the optimized version. You can't turn variable rate shading is better at 4 times. That's like the performance option already, and we don't have DLSS for AMD. The closest we can do is reduce the shading rate. So I'm going to switch to and you'll actually see it in the name, the enhanced benchmark tool now. Enhanced Edition does have its own benchmark tool. And you can see here, enhanced benchmark, and these are the settings that, like, this is literally all you have to work with. You've got the quality, the overall quality. Then you've got ray tracing as low, normal's the lowest, hybrid or ray trace reflections, variable rate shading. A higher multiplier means lower quality, but more optimization. It'll run better. And then you've got the Hairworks, which hurt performance on AMD. They're NVIDIA, optimized as well. Physx runs fine on a Ryzen 3600. And then tessellation is another performance hit, which you simply don't need when you're already forced to use ray tracing in this title. So really, it's a toss-up between these two. Like, I guess if you're gonna run, you're gonna run around 60 FPS anyway. Maybe it's not worth running 68 average, just to keep it above 60 more consistently. But at the same time, looking at these numbers, like high or medium would be in the same ballpark of playability because I'm mainly looking at these 1% lows. So if the 1% low is 42 or if it's 48, I don't think you're going to get stutter or anything like that. You just might get a slight perception in smoothness when you're shooting between these two settings, so high or medium. So the default was high that I tested at. So for our testing, I'm thinking medium would be the wiser choice, but at the same time, in-game is usually runs at a higher frame rate than the benchmark. The benchmark's actually more intensive than the game for the majority of scenes. So let's just keep it on high, and we'll see if the driver to 21.5.1 gives us any kind of performance boost, as it's supposed to do. So let's see that, and there's no shading rate option here. Like, we can't actually turn the render scale down anymore, sadly. So if I was on 3.40 not getting ideal performance, I would actually bump the render scale down to 90%. Maybe we can do it through the game settings, but in the benchmark tool it doesn't have it. And I'm just going to save this, because if I do use it in the future, I'm going to use these specific settings. So we will keep it on high. Doesn't matter that it's 54. I think in-game it would be slightly better, because it is playable. It is playable. Just when you're choosing between... Sorry, it tells you that it doesn't support it, but it does. It does support ray tracing, or it wouldn't run. It's just you have to click it twice sometimes. And we're going to compare it. So we're literally, in this scenario, we're comparing vanilla, high, and optimized settings to enhanced high quality with optimized settings. So we'll see how this goes. See what I mean? It took long enough, didn't it? So there we go. Average frame rate 52. I mean, I had that open, but that doesn't matter. It's just a window. Oh, because recording's on. But yeah, basically no different. We lost a couple FPS per recording, but the driver itself from 21.4.1, which was supposed to, 21.4.5.1 has some support. Maybe it fixed texture loading glitches, because I actually noticed when running the benchmark tool with 21.4.1, I noticed some texture pop-in issues where there would be a low quality texture on any of these quality settings. So even on high, on medium, on low, the statue at the start of the benchmark was actually delaying loading in. It was like stuck on a low res texture. And in that run, it didn't happen. It was like, you can play it back. At the start of that benchmark run, it wasn't, it looked good straight away. So they might have just optimized or fixed bugs with Enhanced Edition rather than increased performance, but that still counts as support. And we're just gonna copy these settings because that's what it was, because that was a high run. So you can actually just compare now if you want to run, like for the 6700 XT at least, if you want to run, rasterized and get the rasterized lighting and the original implementation that the artists put into the game, or if you want to get the true to real world, light ray accurate lighting, but it changes the look of the scenes in the game. And you can see the performance difference here. This is both on high quality. So this is the performance that I was expecting to see people benchmarking and showing comparisons on online. And I've seen a bunch of people comparing RT, the original RTX, which does have a performance boost. For example, on quality high, the performance boost with RTX on in vanilla, it goes from 43 to 54, right? So there is definitely a performance improvement. But to compare that and completely forget about rasterized performance is kind of like, especially for fresh gamers that don't know what they're looking at, it's kind of like sleight of hand kind of marketing. Not calling NVIDIA or 4A games dodgy or anything, just it is marketing that's aimed at RT promotion, and they're trying to like kind of push rasterization out the window and say, look, we don't even need that kind of performance, because if you compare it, it is pretty drastic. It's like double the FPS running on high quality with all the same settings, as optimized as possible. And even in the Enhanced Edition, where you are getting higher RT performance, it's still a significant FPS difference for high quality textures. And you're basically changing the scene lighting and getting some better light reflections. That's it. Like for me, I prefer the artistic direction and lighting of vanilla. And that's not because of performance specifically. If they were both running at 40 FPS, both of them, or 60 FPS, 80 FPS, whatever, if they were both running at 80 FPS, the scenes in Enhanced look like someone turned the bloom or the volumetrics up. And if you know what volumetric fog does in a game, it creates a haze. It happens in Borderlands as well. If you run the Borderlands benchmark with volumetrics turned up, you'll get a haze over the whole scene. And for some, it looks realistic and good, like foggy. But for others, it ruins the image clarity. The image doesn't look as sharp. You can't see the texture detail as clearly. The saturation is affected, so the colors look less bright, vibrant. They actually start looking a bit dull, and that's what it does. Like that's what volumetric light does. And having volumetric ray trace light just does it everywhere, from what I've seen in all the comparison photos and shots. So I've covered that a bit too much. I hope you guys got something out of it. You can at least see the driver performance if they're stable. Yes, they're perfectly stable, and apparently they seem to fix a bug with Metro Exodus and textures. So if you're having texture loading issues with an AMD card in Metro Exodus Enhanced, try these drivers if you're getting that texture issue, because I did notice that. Like I reran on 21.4.1. You can see all the test runs I did. Every single test run with Enhanced Edition had a texture loading issue, a texture delay on some of the lower quality to higher quality texture swapping. So yeah, this one didn't have it. Even though it's only one run, it's a bit anecdotal, but all of these had it. So I think that's enough to say that they did optimize something. So I'll see you in the next driver update, and thanks for watching, guys. Bye.